Welcome to Revelation Unraveled. I'm your host, William Tapley, also known as the third eagle of the apocalypse and the co-prophet of the end times. On this program, I want to talk about the 7 herald angels, as described by St. John in the 15 end time chapters of the book of Revelation. That is, chapters numbers 6 through 20. Now, any Bible scholar will talk to you about the 7 seals, the 7 trumpets, and the 7 bowls, also known as the 7 vials. But none of them understand about the 7 herald angels. In fact, I didn't understand about them myself until I discovered St. John's cryptogram. After St. John had written out the 15 end-time chapters of the book of Revelation, he scrambled them up into a puzzle so that they would not be understood until these end times that we are living in today. Any Bible scholar will tell you that the chronology of the book of Revelations is out of place. But with St. John's cryptogram, all of these events can be shown in their correct chronological sequence. Now let's take a look at the 7 herald angels. Now the top line on St. John's cryptogram describes events which have mostly already occurred. And this great sign was the woman clothed with the sun. And this was partially fulfilled at Fatima when Mary appeared to the 3 shepherd children. Following the great sign comes the first herald angel, which occurs in the first part of the 20th century, and in fact throughout the 20th century. This refers to the great advances in telecommunications which have occurred in the 20th and the 21st centuries. This progress in communications and transportation was predicted by Daniel also, when he said that knowledge would increase in these end times. And I saw another angel flying in the midst of heaven, having the everlasting gospel to preach unto them that dwell on earth, and to every nation and kindred and tongue and people. Now this corresponds exactly to Mark's Olivet Discourse, where Jesus says, "And first my gospel must be preached to all the nations." Notice St. John says nation, kindred, tongue, and people. He could have used probably just one word, but in the end times gospels you always use 4 words if possible, because 4 is an end times number. And St. John continues, saying with a loud voice, "Fear God and give him glory, for the hour of his judgment is come, and worship him that made heaven and earth and the sea and the fountains of waters." Notice again, heaven, earth, sea, and fountains of waters. 4 more items which indicate that this is an end times prophecy. Following the first herald angel, we come to the second herald angel. Now I am going to describe these not in correct chronological order, but in the way St. John would have numbered them if he had numbered these herald angels. And this second herald angel follows World War III and describes the destruction of the United States and Great Britain. And there followed another angel, saying, "Babylon is fallen, that great city, because she made all nations drink of the wine of the wrath of her fornication." Now Babylon represents Western decadent capitalism, and the 2 nations that fall, is fallen, refers to the 2 most prominent capitalist nations, and that is Great Britain and the United States. Now some people complain and say that a city cannot be a nation in St. John's book of Revelation, but this is not true. St. John often uses cities and countries interchangeably. For example, he calls Jerusalem Egypt. Following the second herald angel, we come to the third herald angel, which occurs during the 7 years of tribulation. And the third herald angel describes what will happen to those who take the mark of the beast. And the third angel followed them, saying with a loud voice, "If any man worship the beast and his image, and receive his mark in the forehead or in his hand." Now notice here the mark is in the forehead and in this hand. I believe this clearly points to an RFID chip. And St. John continues, The same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of God, which is poured out without mixture into the cup of his indignation, and he shall be tormented with a fire and brimstone in the sight of the holy angels and in the sight of the Lamb. Now, if anyone thinks that hell is not found in the Bible, here is a very good description of hell: fire and brimstone in the sight of the holy angels and in the sight of the Lamb. Those who take the mark of the beast and who will go to hell will be judged at the time of the fourth herald angel, who announces the grim reaper. That is the angel who will reap the earth with his sharp sickle. And I looked, and behold, a white cloud, and upon the cloud one sat like unto the Son of Man, having on his head a golden crown, and in his hand a sharp sickle. Now some people think that this must be Jesus, because he is like the Son of Man. But remember, he is only like the Son of Man. That's why I believe this is an angel. And if you want to know why St. John does not describe him as an angel, watch my video on the 36 angels of Revelation. And St. John continues, "And another angel came out of the temple, crying with a loud voice to him that sat on the cloud." Here's another indication that this must not be Jesus in verse 14, because he is taking orders from another angel. "Thrust in your sickle and reap, for the time is come for you to reap, for the harvest of the earth is ripe." As I said, I have numbered these angels the way St. John would have numbered them if he had given them numbers in the book of Revelation. Therefore, when we look at the fifth herald angel, we are now back in our current time. And this fifth herald angel announces God's judgment upon America and Great Britain. In other words, on the whore of Babylon. "And there came one of the seven angels, which had the seven vials, and talked to me, saying, Come here, I will show you the judgment of the great whore that sits upon many waters." Now the false prophets will tell you that this great whore is the Catholic Church, or maybe Israel, but these are lies from the pit of hell. This great whore, this Babylon, is our own decadent Western civilization. Now this fifth herald angel describes the last event following the white horse of apostasy. Notice St. John says, "I will show you the judgment of the whore." And now the sixth angel describes the judgment on Babylon, that is Great Britain and America, following the red horse of war, following World War III. "And after these things I saw another angel come down from heaven, having great power, and the earth was enlightened with his glory. And he cried with a mighty voice, saying, Babylon the Great is fallen, is fallen." Again, this refers to the two nations that will fall, Great Britain and America, and has become the habitation of demons, and the hold of every unclean spirit, and the hold of every unclean and hateful bird. This describes the aftermath of World War III and what it will be like living in America. Now this seventh herald angel describes events at the end of the tribulation and following the great battle of Armageddon. "And I saw an angel standing in the sun, and he cried with a loud voice, saying to all the birds that fly in the midst of heaven, Come gather yourselves together to the great supper of God." Now this description of Armageddon is also found in Ezekiel chapter 38 and 39. And this description of the vultures eating the flesh is almost identical to Ezekiel 39 verse 17. Ezekiel writes in chapter 39 verse 17, "Speak to every fowl and beast of the field. Gather yourselves on every side to my sacrifice, that I do sacrifice for you, that you may eat flesh and drink blood." Thus we see that these seven herald angels are very important. And they confirm St. John's cryptogram, because now we have 4 complete sets of 7. 7 bowls, 7 seals, 7 trumpets, and 7 herald angels. And if you would like more information or a free copy of my book, simply write to the address you see on your screen.